Good morning. Welcome to today's class. My name is Jon Witt, and this is my son Noah Witt. And it's a basic class, a Hatha Yoga class, to help develop good practice. I'm keeping the classes a bit shorter so that they're a bit more concentrated and that it's a little bit more effective. So if someone was just coming into yoga, they might not have the attention span to do 60 minutes. Not that you couldn't do 60 minutes or more, but and then I'm adding pieces so that they're a little bit more specific so that you can really see what's actually effective for you and what you need more work on. So it's a process, and if you're working through some injuries, it takes time and patience and basically having a concept of maybe breaking things down a little bit more for yourself so that you can understand more fully why it is that you hurt. And it's not, it for some people it does take a longer time. So I hope these classes are helping you. All the classes are donation based. So if you'd like to make a donation or learn more about me, you can see all my information on my website. It's jonwittyoga.com. So to start, I'm going to start in a standing position. So when I'm standing up, I'm just using my feet as a reference. So I'm just going to transfer the weight into my left foot, into my right. So not that we're going to be jumping or moving, but just moving the weight into your feet. And you can kind of see. So if you had something like an injury, you can make it more subtle where you're not moving outside your capacity, right? So just bring it back into the middle and just move the weight into the heels and into the front of the feet. So you're just kind of moving forward and back. Let's say you move in a particular direction and you fall or you kind of stumble. It might mean that your body is a little bit misaligned and that your head is out of place. So once you get everything lined up a bit better, it's going to be easier for you to balance. So just have your feet as they are, but just bend the knees a bit. Arms could be however you want to counter. And then I'm going to straighten the legs. And then I'm just going to bend the knees. I've said this before in other classes. You don't really have to bend the legs a whole lot to develop good strength. You could actually keep them straight and still produce some strength in the legs. But I'm just warming you up just so that we can do more things in terms of standing and more, again, fundamental yoga. So I'm pulling my hips back as I'm in this, and I'm coming to standing. So you need good hip flexion to eventually do forward bends. That's something that I'm going to focus on today. So last week I was focusing more on lunging. Today I'm going to focus more on your hamstrings and eventually hip compression. So I'm taking my arms forward, and then I'm sitting my hips back. So I'm going to be standing here, and I'm going to isolate the feet and the ankles. So my toes are in the mat, and I'm just rolling my ankle. So do it really slow if you've never done these before. Much easier if you did them in shoes. So if you're in a closed toe shoe, it's easier to do. So just start with having your toes down, and that could be the starting point. But once you have the contact, then you can roll the foot out. And then I'm going to bring my left foot down, and then I'm going to go over to the right side. So just take note of which direction you're going in, because you may always move in the same direction. Not that that's incredibly bad, but it's more of awareness. Some people don't necessarily have the awareness as far as why they hurt. So once you have the awareness, then you can correct it, right? So I'm going to come back into the middle, and then what I'm going to do is, as I was rolling out, I'm going to roll in now. So I'm rolling my foot in. So if you have really tight feet, this is going to be difficult to do. So just kind of moving my foot in a circular motion. When the foot's in the floor, it's going to add more stretching ability within the foot and the ankle. So bring it over into the right side. And again, you don't have to be on the right or anything like that, but just do the sides equally. And if you find that one side is more stiff, you can certainly do that more. So bring it back into the middle, and then when you're in the middle, I'm going to do some spinal work. So my chin is going to go into my chest, and I'm going to round forward. So maybe this is all that you can do, but I'm going to come forward and possibly come And I'm not going to hold this long, but I'm just in a 90-degree angle. And if someone took a photo of me, they'd be like, oh my gosh, what a poor forward bend. But when I'm in a 90-degree angle and I'm rounding my back, it's specifically for that. So I'm going to roll up to standing, and then as I roll up to standing, I'm just going to be here, or I'm going to extend. So just extending the head back in space. You don't have to lift the chin incredibly high, but I'm pushing through the feet. I'm contracting my glutes, and I'm lifting the front of my body to extend. And then I'm coming back to neutral, and then I'm going to side bend to the left. So let your head tilt to your left shoulder and pick up the right side of your body. So if my hips are, if you have a lot of weight in your toes, it means that you need to bring weight into your heels. If you have a lot in your heels, you'll want to bring the weight forward so that it's more over the feet. Bring yourself up and then side bend to the right, and then it's the left side that you're isolating. Let the head tilt to the right shoulder, and then pick up the left side. So I've said this before, it could be done passively, but you can use more effort in exposing the tissues on the left by using more effort. And then come up, and then when you come up, you're going to twist to the right, and then when you twist, keep your hips level. And this is more for coordination and awareness. So some people just turn everything, and then they don't necessarily know that you can move things more independently. Then you're going to turn forward, and then you're going to turn to the left, and then the right hip is back, and I'm looking over my left shoulder. And you'll, again, this is not necessarily bad, but just to understand how you can do it more accurately, is that I'm twisting to the left by keeping my hips squared, and then come back into the middle. So when you're in the middle, I'm going to be moving my thoracic. So I'm moving my chest in space, but if you can notice, I'm not lifting my chin or my chest. I'm not lifting my chin to accentuate the movement. So I'm just moving from my thoracic spine. And it may not move very well, and that's a big reason why we're doing it. So when I'm having my hands on my ribs or my chest, it's just to help me in being a little bit more specific and moving. I'm not going to do many more of these, but you certainly could. That was probably about 10. So I'm just going to be moving my rib cage. See you later. Have a good class. So I'm moving my ribs laterally, right, but keeping my hips neutral. Like I'm not moving everything. Not that that's a bad thing, right? But I'm moving my rib cage in space so that, again, I'm moving more of my spine. So just a couple more of these. And these, they don't look like a lot, but it's for bigger, more global stretching or yoga poses, the more micro, the better the macro will be. So just have your hands on your hips and move your hips in a circular motion to the right. And then as you're moving your hips to the right, just kind of, if you're, a very, fast thinker or whatever, just move slower, right? Just move a little bit slower. And if you're a person that always moves slow, maybe move a little bit quicker. So move it back into the middle, and then to the left, and just feel all the different corners of your hips. If you're doing daily yoga, you're manipulating your hips no matter what the style is. But again, you could be a little bit more specific in the work to produce better results. Right? Just a couple more to the left, and then back into the middle. I'm going to take the hands forward again. I'm going to bend the knees, pull the hips back, bringing myself up. So creating, a bit of flexion or compression in the hips, and then back up. The flexion is here, and then I'm bending the knees and pulling back. I'm back up. And I've said this before, when you bend your knees, kind of see what's not moving. And that's not necessarily bad, but you could do some soft tissue work to develop a knee or to develop the hips, or, maybe it's your ankles, your feet, and then bring it back up to standing. So I'm going to do one more coming down, rolling down. So bring the chin into the chest. try to move individually through the spine, through each vertebrae. And then when you're rounding your back, again, I'm not holding this long, so there might be a concern for some people with osteoporosis, kyphosis. This is actually very good for it. If it's in short bits, you can bring yourself back up, and then when you come up, you can extend. Same thing. You say you're like, I have stenosis and I shouldn't be doing this. You can to a certain extent. I'm not saying like go against what your doctor's telling you, but you don't want to stop certain movements, right? So I'm lifting, pushing through the feet, and then I'm bringing myself back up to center. I'm going to lean to the left, so my right side's opening, tilting my head to the left. Short little practices like or holds are very good to start, but don't do them every day. Do them every other day, something like that, and you'll really see if it's actually helping you. Bring yourself up. You can go to the right. When you go to the right, let the head tilt to the right shoulder. Typically in yoga, it's really like classical yoga, it's long holds. So there's a lot of in between that can be really healthy for you. So maybe you're not holding it as long, right? Bring yourself up, and then you're going to twist to the right. Just the torso. Just the torso is twisting. The hips are squared. The left hip you can pull back. And then turn forward, and then look over the left shoulder, pull the right hip back. Slightly in a posterior tilt. Take a couple deep breaths. And then turning back into the middle. So I'm going to move a little bit more through the arms, which will be good for your neck. So I'm just circling the arms in a circular motion. So take note of which arm is on the inside. My right arm is on the inside as I'm doing this. I'm not going to do a lot of these, but you certainly can. And say you just can't do that. Hold this back position, right? So I'm just moving, keeping the arms straight as I move my arms. Right, and then I'm going to circle more inwardly. And, your concern, move really slow, right? Like you're moving through water. And maybe make it just a partial motion. But you could get someone to help you in adding resistance in the arms, which can be really healthy for the shoulders. And then I'm just going to bring the arms back down. So just look over your right shoulder. Look over your left. Look to the right. Looking to the left. Looking to the right again. Maybe not all the way. Looking to the left. And then bringing the head back to center. So I'm just going to take the head to the right shoulder. Just to adjust the left side of my neck and my shoulder. Partial, again, I'm mixing in partial rather than fuller, just so that it's a little bit more specific and you can see, again, what's better for you. So just let the head, you could explore looking down slightly. You could be looking up, just like in any yoga pose, like a side bend. And lift the head and then take the head to the left side. As the head's to the left, slightly look down, see if that's better in your neck, right? When I'm giving instructions to people privately or publicly, they move too quick, right? They just, and that's partially why people fall. It's partially why people irritate themselves or strain themselves. So you want to be relaxed. Bringing your head up, and then as I take my head up, I'm going to take my feet out a little bit wider than my shoulders. I'm going to take my arms out. I'm going to bend my knees. I'm going to push my thighs apart. So as I'm pushing my legs apart in space, I'm trying to get my tailbone to move down. So I've done pelvic tilts before in other classes. You're in a posterior tilt as opposed to sticking your butt out. Really common in yoga, not that it's awful, but it's way more effective if you can bring the tailbone down and be a little bit more specific on the hips. So you don't have to sit super low, but let's say you want to explore some more space in your hips. you can certainly do that. And then bringing yourself back up to standing and bringing the arms down. So just take the feet back into the middle, and what you're going to do is step your left foot in front of your right foot, so it's a straight line. And then when you're in this straight line, if it's crooked, it's okay. But as it gets easier, try to be in a straight line. And then notice if all the weight's in the back foot, you're a person that leans back too far when you stand or sit. You want to bring the weight into the left foot if you're a person that leans back too much. And if it's easy, close the eyes. And you could use a wall. You could take your arms out wide. But it's training you how to hold yourself better when you stand, when you walk. And you can open the eyes, bring the left foot next to the right, and then step the right foot in front of the left foot. And then when the feet are in this line, again, it can be crooked. So it's okay. Try to get straight through the legs. Extend through the top of the head. Again, see where you bring your weight. So if you're bringing a lot of weight in your back foot, bring it slightly in the front. You really want to know this. You could take a picture of yourself from the side. Right? And some people really don't like taking photos of themselves, but it's the best way of learning. Videotape yourself, really study your practice, and you'll see exactly what you can correct. You can open the eyes. I could help you with that too, right? Send me a video. I'd be happy to give you my opinion on what you can do better, right? So I'm going to take my left leg up in space, so my left leg is coming up, and I'm just going to bring my hand just above the knee. So I'm actually using effort to take the leg up higher. Then I'm going to take it out slightly to the left. If you lack hip flexion, you're going to notice you're going to lean back. So you want to keep your body forward and accentuate the lifting of the leg. So I'm just keeping my hand above the knee to lift it up to get stronger. And this is really, really helpful for forward bending. So you can bring the legs in, or the left leg in, then keep working on taking it up and then bringing it down. So I'm going to take the right leg up. As I take the right leg up, I'm lifting it into my chest, and I'm always just a little bit away from touching my knee with my hand so that I'm encouraging the leg to lift up a little bit more. And it's not so much it's really for function. Say you can't squat, right? This will help with squatting, and then I'm lifting it up, and then I'm pushing, trying to root down through my left heel as I lift my right leg up. And you'll see one side is a little bit more difficult. You can certainly work on that more. So bring it back into the middle, and then lifting it up, and then bringing it down. So I'm just going to do a little bit for your hamstrings. I like these. They're just leg curls. So I'm taking, just so that you can see me better, I'm taking my left leg up off the floor, and I'm trying to touch my foot to my hand, not my hand to my foot. And the same thing, if you can see, I'm moving my hand further away from my foot so that I can curl it up more. And then I'm going to bring it down. So if you're really weak in the hamstring, it'll cramp up. And that's not such a bad thing. It's really getting it to be stronger. And I'm going to take the left foot up one more time. I'm doing these pretty slow. So the slower, the more concentrated you are, the less repetitions you need. Not that high repetitions are bad, right? You can bring the left leg down. I'm just going to turn so you can see me better. I'm taking the right leg up. I'm lifting it. And then I'm moving my hand a little bit further away from my foot so that I can take the leg up a little bit more. And then I'm bringing it down. Do it one more time. So you want to be able to keep it up, not as much, because it won't go up as much if you were to hold the foot. But you could, possibly work it to that level. But it's just a matter of, when are you really strengthening your hamstrings? If you're running, it's partially why the hamstrings are so tight for runners, is that they're strong, right? But they're not as, think of a yoga practitioner and a runner, right? Two different spectrums. So just take the feet out a little bit wider than the shoulders. And with the feet out a little bit wider than the shoulders, I'm going to have my hands on my hips. And then I'm going to come forward. And wherever you feel it's necessary for you to stop, you can stop. I'm just going to hold more of a 90-degree angle so that I'm not that you couldn't go lower, right? You can certainly go lower, but I'm going to a level that I feel the effects in the back of my leg. So take a couple deep breaths here. And then you're going to bring yourself up, and then bringing your feet over to the opposite side. Pubic bones moving down and in, that's what's going to help tilt you forward. So come forward. And for some people, it's like, this is their pose, right? It's fine, right? Over time, you'll be able to get to the level of your hips. And then that's really specific in the hamstring, which, not that I don't, if I saw you and you were down with your hands, it's perfectly fine. But when you're here, it's a little bit more balance work. And it's also very isolated in the hamstring, which a big reason why I'm doing this. So take one more deep breath here. And then bringing yourself back up. And then when you come up, just back into a standing position. So I'm going to come down on the hands, do a little bit on the hands, not a whole lot, but if you could be on your hands, you could be in a seated position, working on your posture. Like classic yoga is very rare these days, but you could be working on sitting in Baddha Konasana or Sukhasana or Virasana, those classic positions. So I'm going to come down on my hands. Then my hands are just turned out slightly or all the way out. I have my hands just moving the weight hand to hand, and feel how you're bringing the weight into the hands to adjust them. So I'm just kind of bringing weight into different parts of the hands to stretch up the hands, the wrist. And then come back into the middle, and then push through the hands and just round through the shoulders, round through the back into a cat stretch. Look forward, look up, you can back bend. And then exhale, you can round your back. So you're rounding your spine. You can look forward, you can look up, you can back bend. And then you can exhale, you can round your back. And then just take the hands over to the right side, and you can look high over the right shoulder. So you're lifting the head, you're lifting the chest, just basic side bend. Then take the hands to the left side and look high over the left shoulder. So I'm running out of space, I'm not going as far. But it's kind of nice to move in different angles. So if you always do your yoga the same way, I say this all the time, your body adapts to it, and that's why it gets easy and efficient. So it's good to do a little bit differently. So if I just took my hands out a quarter of the way, certainly it's not as much range, but it's a different exposure, and that's where you can benefit, right? When you're doing your yoga a little bit differently, or your whatever form of fitness or self-development, right? So when I'm on my hands and my knees, I'm going to tuck the toes, and I'm going to sit back towards my feet. So I'm just kind of sitting back a little bit, and then I'm going to go back to untucking the toes and sitting back on the feet, just to adjust the feet differently. So I'm bringing more weight into my left foot if I need it. I'm bringing more weight into my right. So you know that you have an injury and you're just not going into it. Try to bring weight there, right? It's scar tissue. Things don't move as well. They certainly can move again. It's different if you have like screws or plates. These are things that people have in their body. Obviously, you're not going too far into these things if that's the case. So come back up onto your hands and protract through the shoulders. So index fingers are forward, but they could certainly turn out, right? If you really need your hands turned out, turn them out more. So lift your knees up off the floor, push through your hands, and then as you push through your hands, what you're going to do is go up into a down dog, and then in a down dog, pedal the legs out. So move your legs, move your heels down, adjust your legs, adjust your hamstrings, adjust your hips, spread your toes out, and what we're going to do is bend your knees and walk your hands back towards your feet if you can. It's a standing forward bend. It's going to build up better strength in the hands, the arms, if you can. If you can't do this, right, you could stay in plank, come down to child's pose, something like that, right? So walk the hands forward, come back into plank, push the floor, resist the floor, and come down on the knees. And when you come down on the knees, come down on the elbows and reach the arms forward if you can. So when you're here and your head is down, think of what's pushing down. I'm trying to stay somewhat neutral in my back, and I'm just moving my shoulders, trying to get my shoulders to move down. And your hands can be wider, right? You don't have to be as wide as your shoulders. A couple deep breaths here, and then come back up. When you come back up, come down onto the elbows, and when you come down onto your elbows, lift your knees off the floor. So get into a hollow position in the front of the body. Just let your body relax down, kind of retract, and then protract. Retract the shoulders, let everything kind of move down and in, and then protract the shoulders. It's very different, but very good for the shoulders. And then come down with the knees, and when you come down with the knees, I'm just going to be on my forearms. So then as you're on your forearms, you're moving yourself forward in space, and not a really deep back bend, but you can kind of see you hold something long enough, right? You could really study yourself and see what needs to be manipulated, right? So I'm going to bring my feet together, and I'm going to squeeze a little bit more with my glutes, and then I'm going to relax, and then squeeze, and see if it's too much to squeeze, because it could be. You could stay relaxed. But the squeezing is beneficial for your hips. It's beneficial for eventually like doing deeper back bends, right? Bigger extensions. And then bring yourself down. And then when you come down, have your arms beside you and lift your chest, lift your feet up off the floor. So make your hands into fists. So bring the shoulder blades to move in, but then let them relax a little bit. And then bring them back in so that you're moving your shoulders back in space, and let them relax. And then one more time in lifting, and then you can lower back down. Now I'm going to bring my hands underneath my shoulders, and with my hands underneath my shoulders, your hands can be wider, they can be more forward. I'm going to curl up into a low back bend, relatively low, and then I'm going to move myself down. I'm going to curl up, and then I'm moving down. And if I was practicing on my own, the number would change, right? I'm not fixed on like I have to do 5, I have to do 10. If I need to do more, I'll do more. If I need to do less, I'll do less, right? So I'm going to curl up and just testing how much it is to come up. So if you can, get the feet together. Keep them together. Take a couple deep breaths. And maybe you're not, maybe you're just up in your forearms, which is very good. Then bringing yourself forward down with the hips. Then bringing the ribs down. Bringing the upper body down. And then tucking the toes. So just push through the hands. Come to all fours, of course. But you could push straight up into plank. And you can go back up into down dog. So just, if you've never done this before, turn your heels out. Press through the hands. Move back through the hips. Short down dog is really a lot of hamstrings. So you could do it that way. You can make it long and open up more through the upper body. Both are good. Both are what I would use. I wouldn't just use one. Walk the feet forward. Halfway, walk the hands back towards the feet. And just stay in a forward bend and just round your back like we did before. So sometimes if you had a herniation, don't round your back, right? You've your early stages of osteoporosis, right? Be more neutral. But if you can, round your back, round your spine, just so that it's a little different. And if you're not doing plow or shoulder stand, this is a great introduction for that. So I'm rounding my back, taking my hands to the right. I'm rounding my spine. You'll never see a rounded back in a yoga app, right? Never, right? It's like just not visually, I guess, positive. But it's very, it's what you're doing in a lot of yoga poses when you're doing classic yoga. So bring it back into the middle and then extend and see the difference. If you do more extension, you'll like it more, right? Most likely, because it's like you're better at it, you're good at it, but you probably need the opposite, right? Someone that always lifts weights is going to prefer weightlifting to say running. They would much rather lift weights than run. So you can slowly roll yourself up. As you roll yourself up, you're just back into standing. So when I'm in standing, I'm just, again, I say this sometimes, see what you see, because if you always see one direction, it can be problematic. So you're just trying to measure yourself out more. So just bring your hands on your hips and stick your butt out, and then bring the tailbone down and in. Stick it out again. Partial range of motion is good, and then bring it underneath. For these, either have your legs bent or your legs straight. Do one or the other, but just articulate through the hips. So stick the butt out, and then bring it underneath. Stick it out again. I know these look strange, but they're very good for your hips, very good for your back. Then bring it down, and then you can stand back up where your legs are straight. So I'm going to do a bit of some Warrior 3, so for hamstrings. But again, if you got back pain, something like that, you could stick to Warrior 2 poses like that, right? But have your block with you, and then with your block, then you can kind of measure how much you're going to bring yourself down. I'm going to come down at least a few times, right? But you'll see the transition is where there's more leverage. So it's kind of viewed in classic yoga, don't move out of the pose, right? That has its place, right? But to move in and out of the pose, it's good for balance, and it's better, not that it's better, but it's more exposure in the legs, right? So I'm going to have my block here. I'm going to step back a little bit, about 3.5 feet away from my block, and then I'm going to step forward with my right foot. And for those of you that are just still learning to balance, just be off, have the foot available and touching, right? And then just start by bending the knee and coming forward. So I'll do this a couple times. So you can bend the knee, you could be here, right? A couple deep breaths, and then bring yourself up to standing, and then you can step back. Then I'm going to step the left foot forward, and then I'm just tipping forward. I'm going to bend the knee, the bottom leg, which is really good for your legs, I'm going to do the pose. The second time I do it, I'm going to do it with the leg straight, but you can have the foot down available. You can have a chair or wall support you. It's all very good, right? Again, you're concerned with your spine. Don't come forward more, Then I'm going to step back with my right foot, and then I'm here. Again, you could be twisting in a chair, or what I used earlier. Again, those are the things that you could use. And that's why when I'm teaching a group class, I always am expressing like what I'm using now might not be best for you, and you should be using something else, right? So I'm going to come forward with my right foot, and then I'm tipping forward. And then when I tip forward, I'm going to keep my leg, not that it has to be straight, but the more strong and straight it is, and then I'm bringing the hands into the block, right? And then before I'm going to come up, right? And then I'm going to bring myself forward. I'm going to bring myself down. And then I'm going to turn, if I can, the block to the second level, right? Then I'm going to bring myself up. And then I'm going to come forward. I'm going to come down. Again, the bottom leg could be bent, even if you're reaching for the block, right? That's not like against the rules. It's something you could do. You could turn the block all the way down. You could even move the block out of the way. So remember when we were bringing the leg to the body is what you're using in forward bends, right? If you're on fingertips, that has benefits. If you're bending the elbows, right? Just kind of like the beginner stages of doing like what we call in yoga standing splits. So I'm going to step and move my block to the highest level. I'm going to step forward with my left foot. I'm going to tip forward. And just kind of see in the different stages what's holding you back, because you'll be like, oh yeah, it's my hamstring. You can bring the hands to the block. You can bring yourself up. You can bring yourself forward. And be slow, right? Some people are just like, they just want to get through it, and you're kind of missing the point of practicing. So then the block is on the second level, and you can bring yourself up. And then I'm going to come forward, and as I come forward and as I come down, I'm going to bring the block to the lowest level. Right? Now you could bring the block out of the way if you don't need it, or if you don't want to use it. But I just, as an example of coming down in stages, so you can spread through the toes. I'm actively pulling my left leg to my upper body, and that compression is what's getting me closer to the leg. And bringing yourself up, back into a standing position. So just back into standing. And just do a little bit of standing work. I'm going to have my hands behind me. I'm going to hook the thumb and come up onto the toes with the heels off the floor. So a nice straight line. If you can, look over your right shoulder. Look over your left. Keep yourself up. Look center, and then you can lower the heels. And then as you lower the heels, just going to do a balancing pose just to kind of see the benefits, or just like a classic position. So doing what previous exercises, maybe you can see some benefits, or you can see some improvement. So taking the left leg up, it could be up into the inside of the thigh. You need more leverage in the hip. You could certainly hold the leg. So you're hugging in, you know. I'm using more classic poses, especially for people that do yoga quite a bit or a lot, as just like measuring points, or like ways to kind of see if you're improving. And I'm using different techniques because they are different and they're more stimulating. So you can bring the arms down and the knee forward and the foot down, because you don't really want to, it's going to kind of sound contradictory, is you want to get really good at yoga, because if, in some ways, like an athlete, like think of like a professional basketball player, they're very good in that, obviously, that sport, but they would be, you know, they'd probably have a really hard time like playing football or soccer, right? So it's good to be well-rounded, in my opinion, more well-rounded rather than just good in one thing. You can bring the arms down and the knee forward and the foot down. As you get stronger and more integrated, you'll be good at a number of things, right? So just take the feet out a little bit wider than the shoulders, just to add some strength into your legs. I'm going to take the arms out wide. I'm going to have my thumbs up. I'm going to bend my knees. I'm going to push my knees apart. As you're pushing your thighs apart, again, try to get more tucking of the tailbone down. So move it down. As you move it down, you're going to get more specific into the hips. So take a couple deep breaths. Press the knees apart. And then bringing yourself back up. And then when you come back up, I'm going to come into a wide angle forward bend with my hands on my hips. So not an incredibly wide stance, and I'm not coming all the way forward and down. So right, one, I'm doing it to strengthen someone's back, right? It's very good to do if you're a person that, I just love getting down, right? It's good, but person that always comes forward and down, I know a lot of people, they have serious problems with their back, right? So it's that's what I'm doing, is varying it. So push the thighs apart, widen the thighs, elevate the chest, right? And then as I'm elevating the chest and I'm widening the shoulders, I could hug in with my legs. I could push my thighs apart. Okay, then bring yourself up. I'm just going to come forward one more time. If you find a lot of stress in your back, just stand. Just work on standing. So bring yourself forward into an extension. Couple deep breaths. And then bringing yourself up to standing, and then stepping the feet back in. You could hop the feet back in if you'd like. I'm going to sit down on the floor, and then as I sit down, I'm going to have my legs into a cross position. I'm just crossing my legs. Didn't do much side bending today. I'm going to do it on the floor. So just kind of, when you're here, just move the rib cage. Maybe just like 25% of the way. Just really subtle. Just move it around a little bit. Just get used to that. And then just move just the rib cage in a really small circular motion. And smaller sometimes is deeper, right? Bigger is maybe not as direct into the spine. So I'm moving really small. Then I'm going to move the rib cage in the opposite direction. And let's say it's really challenging, right? It's not a bad thing. It's really, I think that's going to help you more. And then bringing it back into the middle. And then I'm going to take my left hand to the left and reach my right hand up to the right. I'm squeezing my legs in if I need to. You know, if you're a person that wants to get more space on the side, because at some point you'll need more leverage, I'm going to bring my elbow down for a moment, my left elbow, and then I'm going to take it up. And then I'm going to bring it down, relax the head, the neck, and then up, and then come up, and then recross the legs. And as you recross the legs, take the right hand to the right side. Then as you're off to the right, I'm going to bring my right elbow down, and then I'm going to bring it up. Bring it down, and then up, and then one more time down, and then back up. And then when you're up, have your feet together, have your knees wide. So some of the difficulty in forward bending or hamstrings is the adductors. So push the legs apart, not necessarily down, but push the knees apart. And as you push your knees apart, your thighs apart, you're going to feel more directly into the upper portion of your thigh and into your pelvis. So drive the legs apart. Really good to do up against the wall. It's a very good way of doing it. And then just let the knees kind of carry up. Just let them relax. And then push the thighs apart. Driving your legs apart. Nice and tall. Breathing in and out. And then let that relax. Bring the legs in. Push the knees out into the arms. Right. Look over the right shoulder. Just kind of see how your head's in space. Like I'm lifting my head a little bit because it's just to stretch out the right side. Then looking over the left. And the same thing, because you'll notice when you turn your head to your left side gets shorter, kind of crinkles up. So you can lift the left side of your neck, and then you can turn forward. So you can come back into that cross-legged position, and just try to bring your knees closer together. So if I'm wide, my feet are close together, right? If my legs are close together, it's a tighter fit. Just a different way. So I hope you had a great class today. I had a great time. Let me know how the classes are going. If you have any questions, send me a video of what you're doing. And it's much easier to help someone as opposed to just writing me an email. Not that you couldn't do that, but if you send me a video, I could give you more direct information about how you can make your practice better, or you can work through an injury, something like that. So I'm teaching tomorrow at 10 a.m. on Zoom, and you'd register for that class on my website. So I really appreciate all the love and all the support and the donations. It helps me in my cause. So thank you, and you can donate. You can find the information again on my website. Have a beautiful weekend.